Hi there! Welcome back to another in the video series 12 Days of Painting. Today we're going to do a seascape. These are all very simple paintings that are beginner friendly. You can do in a few minutes and give them as gifts to family and friends. So let's get started. Today we're going to be painting in blues and greens with a little bit of purple added for flavor. So let's start with our three colors that we always use: quinacridone magenta, phthalo blue, and benzimidazolone yellow. We'll also have some titanium white and some glazing liquid. This is all in your description. I'll put out a little bit of all of my colors here, a little quin magenta, a little benzimidazolone yellow, a little phthalo blue. I better put the lid on this one because it tends to come out in a big batch and we don't need that much of it. Let's have a little phthalo. Actually, we're going to need that more than that because we're doing blues and greens today. And titanium white and some glazing liquid, just in case we need to keep our paint wet and workable. So these are all very simple paintings that you can do in 20 or 30 minutes. I've designed them that way so they don't take a lot of time. Let's start with a paintbrush, put it in the water, wipe it off. We're going all in kind of purples and blues and greens. Let's start our sky. And actually, before I do that, I am going to kind of draw in my design just to kind of give me an idea of where I'm going. I'm using a paint pen. This is a medium. You can use a fine. As a matter of fact, let me switch over to a fine here. This is a fine paint pen. I'm going to have my cove like so. That's going to be the cove of my water right there. I'm going to have a sort of a hill there, and this hill is going to overlap like that. And my beach is going to be right here, and my foliage and my plants and things will be there. So that's all you need to draw, just to kind of give you a feel for what you need to do. Okay, I wet my brush and I wiped it off. Not any water on my palette. And I'm going to start with a purple up here. So little phthalo, little quin magenta, a lot of titanium white. I want that really light up there. Let's have a little more titanium white. That's better. And just put that down. Maybe a little bit of glazing liquid to keep things juicy. Cover everything. Don't worry if you go down over that hill. That's okay. We're going to paint right back into it. If you want to go around it so you can kind of remember, do that, but you don't have to. Just make sure you cover up all the white space. And you can see here, I'm not using a uniform purple. I keep dipping my brush, dipping the white. Just a nice, different kind of blend of purple. There we go. That looks pretty good. Okay, I'm going to wash my brush, because I want to do some kind of green hills, and I don't want to bring any purple into that green, because if I do, it'll make it a little muddy. So I think I'm actually going to skip over to my number 6. I was painting with my number 10. I'm going to skip over to my number 6 because these forms are a little bit small. So I want kind of a nice turquoisey green back there. Let's get a little of our quin magenta. Benzimidazolone, get a green going there. Let's add a little titanium white. Oh, there we go. That's pretty good. That's pretty good color right there. Let's come in, just let that roll right up over that purple. Now I'm going to add a little yellow as I go. I don't want it all one color, one flat color. Let's get a little bit more phthalo. Add that in as well. It makes it a lot more interesting if you just add the colors right on the canvas. A little bit more phthalo here. That's looking pretty good. Let's add a little titanium white. And see, just let those colors blend on the canvas. I'm having a blast with those colors. That way you get a really nice blending of colors. Okay, I'm going to wipe my brush. This one here in the foreground, I think I'm going to leave that one. I'm going to do my water next. My brush has got a little green on it, which is fine, but I'm going to put a little bit more of the phthalo here and go into the titanium white. I want a much lighter blue. And I'll just pull this in sideways. Get some glazing liquid in that. Maybe a little bit more of that phthalo back here. A little darker as it's next to the land. A little bit more phthalo here in the front. Titanium white. And just let it blend right on the canvas. Let's wipe my brush. I got a little bit too much phthalo on my brush, so just needed to wipe it off. And it's just as long as you're painting with your brush sideways. Let me show you what that looks like. I'm just holding my brush. Let's get over here so you can see. Painting with my brush sideways. So pick up those colors. Whoops, I picked up a little green. Let's get a little phthalo, a little titanium white, and just paint that, use that brush sideways, horizontal, okay? That'll get you that nice feeling of waves and whatnot there in the water. Just do that sideways. Okay, so we've got our water. I think our water needs to be a little bit lighter. It feels a little dark to me. So I'm going to go back into the titanium white and just come right back into the wet paint and just lighten it up. Maybe even leave a little bit of that white not blended, so it kind of looks a little bit like waves. Works for me. Okay, I'm going to wipe my brush. Now this foreground shape here, that mountain or hill, I think I want that to be a little bit bluer than this one. So I'm going to go into my phthalo blue and my yellow. Let's make a darker green. I'm just going right into the colors that I used for the water, but I'm just making it darker. And oh yeah, I like that. But I want a little bit more yellow in that. There we go. And I don't think we have enough difference between these two hills. We're going to fix that. I'm going to fix that right now. Let's have this hill be a little bit darker. And because that other one is in the distance, let's have it a little lighter. So that paint is still wet back there. And this is what's so great about using the paint and blending it on the canvas. I'm going to take my titanium white and I'm going to go right back into this. All that paint is still wet. So I can lighten that up. And it does a really good job of just lightening it up. Much better. It needed to be a little bit lighter. There we go. Perfect. Great. And see, I'm not blending this in here because I want that kind of variation. It kind of shows hills and things like that. You don't want it to be one solid color. Now our foreground hill here is a little bit too solid. So let's grab some of our benzimidazolone, and we're going to make a kind of a lime green going right into that mixture we had before. Let's just give this some variation. Little variation there. How about a little phthalo for variation as well? Just letting that brush do the work. And I think we need to go just a tiny bit lighter. There we go. Just a tiny bit lighter. Give it some definition. Let the paint just blend right on the canvas. And while you're working like this, which is actually an old way of working as an oil painter, is alla prima, wet into wet. We're just blending right on the canvas. This is very much the way that the Impressionists worked. I'm going to get a little bit of my phthalo in there. There we go. Okay. All right, now we're going to come forward and do our foreground here, which is going to be all kind of purpley, kind of a pale purple. So that's our purple sand. All right, kind of similar to our sky. It's just the background for our plants. So I've got some titanium white here. I'm going to grab a little bit. I think I have a little bit of that purple left. I'm going to grab that. I'm going to go slightly pinker with it. There we go. Just a tiny bit of Quin Magenta. And we're just going to paint that in here because that's just going to serve as the background for our plants that we're going to put in. Just fill that entire color in. With a kind of a purple. You can make it pinker, you can make it bluer, doesn't really matter. See a little white spot there? Okay, all right. Now, if you've been painting with me in these videos, you know what's going to happen next. We're going to take a drying time. So you're going to pause your video for 10 minutes, let everything dry, and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Now we're going to put in all of our foliage here, and that's going to be fun. So let's first start with a little bit of some kind of larger shapes. So we're going to go green with those. Let's get our benzimidazolone and a little bit of a little bit of phthalo blue, and we'll put some dark green shapes in, just big kind of shapes that we will then paint our foliage over. So they just want to be a few dark green shapes. Paint that in. Let's have a little bit more dark green over here, maybe. This will act as a background for our really fun plants that we're going to do. Really fun plants. And be sure you get your paint pens ready. Everything you need is in your description. Just get those paint pens ready. And we're going to have a lot of fun with the plants that go in front of these green shapes here. Okay, once again, if you've been following along, you know that we're going to have to let this dry. So put your timer on for 5 to 10 minutes and pause your video and come back and we'll finish up with some really fun plants. Okay, we're back. We've got our area here is dry, and now we're going to have some fun with the plants in front. Now, you can either use your paint pens for this, lots of different colors of paint pens, or you can paint them in. Either way, whatever you prefer. I'm going to do a combination of both. So I'm going to start with some leaves that are purple. So I'm going to make purple with my phthalo and my white. Add a little quin magenta to that to make a light purple. Let's have a little bit more titanium white to make that light. Now, if you paint things down in acrylic, make sure it dries before you use your paint pens on top of it, because that will ruin your paint pens. If you go right into wet acrylic paint with your paint pen, it will ruin your paint pen. So we're going to do a few things with paint, and then I'm going to come back on top with paint pens. So let's have some wild leaves here. Some really fun purple leaves. Oh, looks like I picked up a little bit of that phthalo. That's fine. I'll have some more purple here. And let's get a little bit lighter purple. Pulling up from the bottom and going across. How about a little bit of dark phthalo there too? Let's have some of that. Just using these kind of plant forms, and just have fun with it, because we're going to have a blast with our paint pens here in a minute. Going to have some small leaves down here, maybe a couple of big ones or smaller ones right here. Let's have one over here. And you'll notice that I'm staying in the purple and blue range for this. Let's have a little bit more phthalo. I'm going to go a little bit lighter blue now. A few more leaves down here. Just make it as plentiful as you like, and then we'll come back with our paint pen and have some fun decorating all of those leaves and all of the cool little purple and blue plants that we made. Really fill that up, make it look nice and lush. Let's have one up here. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now, of course, we're going to have to let that dry before we can play with our paint pens. So as you know, we're going to pause the video for maybe 5 minutes, put that in front of a fan. If you're going to use a hairdryer, use it on cool, and then come back in 5 minutes and we'll have fun with our paint pens. Okay, we're back, and we're going to have some fun with our paint pens. These are in your description. Everything we're using is in your description. Let's have some fun with these paint pens. Okay, I'm going to take a light green, make sure it's working, and I'm going to come into some of these and just draw little plant forms. Fill those in. And just keep going with that kind of decoration, if that's what you want to call it. I'm going to do another one here. And remember, this is acrylic paint. These paint pens are acrylic paint. So if you are going to draw on top of what you put down with your paint pen, make sure you let that dry as well. Let's have one more of those little babies right here. Okay. Now let's switch over to an orange, a little contrast here. I'm gonna put an orange right up here. Let's have these guys' leaves a little bit bigger. That looks great. It really pops too. Let's have another one of those coming out from over here. Those leaves a little bit bigger. That nice orange pop. Okay, maybe a tiny one down here. A little bit smaller. Good. Looking good. Our foliage is looking really good. Our plants are looking great. Let's have a dark purple. I'm going to go into this big leaf right here. Just give it a little bit of definition and maybe a few dots. How about a little dark purple here and here? Maybe a little bit more of that leaf business right here. And a little bit of dark purple here. Our plants are really looking great. We've got a little bit of dark, a lighter blue here for this leaf up here. And here as well on these darker leaves. I can put a little bit of definition in there with my paint pen. And I think that might do it. I think that might be all we need. Looks like my orange right here didn't quite cover. When you have a lighter color on top of a darker color with those paint pens, sometimes you'll have to do two layers. But just like with any other acrylic paint, make sure you let it dry before you try to work on top of it. Okay, that is our whimsical seascape there with some fun foliage. I hope you liked that. Again, these are just really simple little paintings for you to make in 20-30 minutes, and you can give them as gifts for the holidays, for birthdays, just about any time. So be sure to join me in the next video, and remember what I always say, keep painting.